We are here with Dr. Dani McFetty. She's the creator of Lap of Love, which is the nation's leader in end-of-life care for pets and pet hospice. Not only that, but Dani, you were voted the pet industry's Woman of the Year last year. That is so impressive. Congratulations.
Thank you.
We love our pets so much, and I know one thing that most of us feel is that they just never live as long as we want them to. Why does it seem like, dogs have such shorter lives, or why they age so quickly?
It's their one flaw, right? Their one flaw is that they don't live as long as we do. And to really get down to the science of it, we'd have to be talking about the genetics of aging. But we know that smaller dogs are going to live a little bit longer. The larger dogs tend to age a little bit faster, but of course that's very species different.
One of the other classes of conditions that the Pet Med Lab's CBD treats and CBD products are excellent for is pain and inflammation. And I know that sounds like a pretty broad category, but what exactly is pain and inflammation, and why are they so closely linked?
It is a very, very broad term and a very broad class of conditions that it can help with. But pain, we know, is very, it's very broad, right? There's the pain of maybe even just your skin being scraped, and then the pain of just not feeling well, and then there's the pain of maybe anxiety also. But really that internal just interpretation that the body has that something's not right. And then therefore causing some type of negative feeling, or what we call nociception in medicine. That's really what pain is in the body.
And why do people talk about inflammation so much? When people, humans will take things like ibuprofen or do something like if they hurt themselves, they'll ice themselves. Is that because of inflammation and they want to reduce that?
Yeah, it is. So if we can reduce inflammation, then we believe that we can, in many cases, reduce the pain associated with it. So inflammatory cells will come in, have inflammatory markers that will then click onto the neurons and then tell the brain that something's wrong. But sometimes if we can stop the inflammation that happens from either a disease or from an injury, that can in turn reduce the amount of pain receptors and pain signals that are going to the brain in the first place.
So when I think inflammation, obviously, you're thinking that something is swelling in size. Is that the right idea? And so this can happen in our animals? How would animals experience inflammation?
Yeah, absolutely, in many different ways. And so when we see inflammation on the outside, that is obviously because cells have flooded in the area, and then so many cells have flooded in that we cause a little bit of a bulging of the skin, if you will. But that can also happen internally. It can happen in our internal organs, it can happen on our skin, and that can show up in many different ways.
I love the idea that we can look at something like pain or inflammation, which is just the most basic of something that you were saying could be bothering your dog, and say, I'm not going to go get a bunch of blood tests done and see if my dog is capable of this or that. Let me start with the alternative medicine instead as the first line of defense medicine, and try something like the Pet Med Lab's CBD products, instead of jumping right to, I think, what you called the last part of the game, right? You said we usually jump to the very end part of the game and go right to the major types of drugs, as opposed to starting with something so simple and so natural.
No, you're exactly right. And starting with something like the Pet Med Labs CBD products, it makes the transition very easy. And it does make us and really empower the owner to give something that's safe, that's non-toxic, that's completely pure, that's not going to cause any harm, and allow them to treat some of these tiny little underlying conditions before they get too bad. And of course, then know when the right opportunity is to then go to the regular veterinarian and say, this hasn't worked, now let's try something else.